Ah, the farm life. The lush countryside, a comfy town, and a rewarding job that will sustain me for the rest of my life. Wait, why is a walking potato following me? Monster Harvest was just released at the end of last month, and while it wasn't the biggest hype monster, I was quite intrigued by its mix of farming and monster taming. It's been described as a mix of Stardew Valley and Pokemon, and while that's true, it's more like 90% Stardew Valley and 10% Pokemon. The game was developed by Maple Powered Games, which you might have guessed is a small studio from Canada, and published by Merge Games. And well, guess what? Ya boy got a review key, provided for free by Merge Games. It's not sponsored, but for the sake of transparency, there you go. The game begins with picking a name for yourself and for your farm, as well as a player model. You receive a letter from your uncle, Professor Spark, who discovered a mysterious substance that could transform plants into animals, called planimals. Following this discovery, people started gathering around his laboratory, and a town called Planimal Point was built around it. But Uncle is too busy researching slimes to take care of his old farm, so he invites you to take over it. Of course, you'll have to clean it up first. But it doesn't take long until the suspicious Slimeco moves into Planimal Point, and coincidentally the slimes start going wild and leaving the dungeon, something that never happened before. So maybe you should get your ass down to the bottom of the dungeon to see what the balls is even going on down there. And so begin your days of farming the land, exploring the dungeon, and growing potatoes on legs. Well, first you'll have to clear up some space by chopping down trees and smashing rocks to pieces. You start with your basic tools to do all your basic farming tasks, but as you progress, you will unlock new stuff, and your farm will grow into a spectacular display of nature and scientific abominations. The game is split into 3 seasons: dry, wet, and dark, and each one lasts for 21 in-game days. Unlike its peers though, there isn't a time limit for each day. Instead, it starts in daytime and you can head to your bed to switch to evening or to end the day. Most activities take place during the daytime, but some places like the saloon and the dungeon are only available during the night. In town, you have Uncle's lab in the center, which eventually unlocks the crop fusion mechanic. But you also have stores that sell you various items of dubious usefulness. The general store does sell you seeds though, and what farm worth its salt doesn't have crops to grow, right? The process is pretty simple. Use the hoe to till a tile, plant the seed, and then water it every day for a few days. Eventually it will grow into a full crop that you can sell or eat or cook and then eat. You have 4 crops for each season, and until late game you can only grow them in their respective season. In the meantime, you have plenty of things to do while you wait. You have random items that show up every day and you can sell for some pennies, or you can unlock the fishing rod and then snatch a container's worth of fish to sell or to cook. There are also a handful of festivals to see, and every Friday the people of Planimal Point gather in the rec center to enjoy some cockfighting. All of the things you do award you a bit of XP, and whenever you gain a level you unlock a new crafting recipe. These include the slime items, chests to store items in, scarecrows to keep monsters from eating your crops, pipes to automatically water your crops, and a few machines that take certain items and refines them into more valuable versions of them. You are also free to befriend the villagers, although sadly there is no marriage mechanic of any sort, so you can't marry someone and pump out some kids. If you've played other farming games in the vein of Harvest Moon or Stardew Valley, you'll be right at home here. Monster Harvest doesn't have the same depth as its more popular peers do, but it is just as addicting. It's a game about chores, but unlike real life, the chores are fun and rewarding. Mostly. It fulfills the excitement of going from zero to hero. Your farm is a giant mess when you start, but eventually you'll clean it up. You'll start having a bunch of crops and livestock to take care of, and you'll even end up with a farm that has more space than you'll ever need. And it's all open-ended, and you do whatever you want with your time. The only objectives you have is to reach the bottom of the dungeon and to beat everyone at the rec center. How and when you go about completing those is entirely up to you. But this is just the harvest part of Monster Harvest. There's the monster part, which comes down to slimes. There are 6 types: red, green, blue, and a super variation for each. Swap them on any growing crop and stuff happens. Slime items can be acquired through a variety of methods, like simply buying them or attacking slime monsters and ending their pathetic little lives. In the dungeon you can also find crystals that you break to find their ores, and when you learn the recipe you can craft that ore into slime. Red slimes turn crops into combat planimals. Each of the 12 crops produces a different planimal, a regular one for the regular red slime, and a mega variation with higher stats for the super red slime. You have 6 party slots, but you can only have one of each planimal with you, and the rest stay at the pen. Alternatively, you can also just straight up sell these planimals for cash. Blue slime instead creates livestock planimals, which serve as your livestock. They start in baby form, but after some time they become adults and produce an item every couple of days, which can be sold or refined. But keep in mind that you still need to place food for them, although unlike other games, the food is just given for free every day, rather than being harvested. Super Blue Slime, however, creates mount planimals, which don't grow nor do they produce items, but you can ride them throughout the world, which is faster than just using your own legs. Since you'll be constantly moving between the farm and the dungeon, this is pretty convenient. Unfortunately, they can't be brought inside the dungeon, since Uncle won't let you and you're not allowed to roadkill him. Both livestock and mount planimals can also be sold for doge if you're a heartless bastard. Finally, the green slime serves a very simple, very useful purpose. It instantly grows crops to their final form. And yes, you can apply green slime to crops that already have red or blue slime on them. Super green slime, however, lets crops produce their items multiple times. Regardless, once you've got a party of slaves, you can go visit the dungeon during the night. It has 5 floors with different, randomly generated layouts on each visit. On the last room of each floor, you have a chest filled with goodies and a boss monster that you must defeat. Obviously, you won't reach the end in your first trip, but you can exit the dungeon at any time. The floors are filled with useful minerals that can be used to upgrade your buildings and tools, and craft various items. The boss chest also awards you a number of seeds from the current season, so taking the time to explore the dungeon every day creates a nice feedback loop of crops and planimals. But many rooms also have enemies in them, who will give chase if you get too close. Combat is then initiated by just touching them, which gives the enemy the first strike, or by slashing them, giving you the initiative and dealing a tiny bit of damage with the upgraded swords. Battles are all a one-on-one turn-based affair. Planimals start with one basic attack, but at level 3 and 8 they learn moves that spend FP for a variety of effects. Used FP doesn't carry over between battles, so don't worry about spending all of it against a single enemy. HP, however, can only be restored by a handful of moves, or by gaining XP and leveling up, which also increases the Planimal's maximum HP and damage output. And you should be wary that Planimals who lose all their HP are permanently dead, and if you have any others left, they will automatically come out. But hey, it's not all bad, because dead planimals are converted into hearts that can be spent to increase the farm's soil level, which in turn increases the starting level of your planimals. The more they die horribly, the stronger their replacements will be. That's it. That's the combat system. If it's not painfully obvious by now, the monster part of Monster Harvest is exceedingly bare bones. Every planimal has the same HP and FP, the same XP requirements, and the basic attack deals the same damage at the same level. I imagine this is why there's no separate stat screen for each planimal. The only difference between different planimals is their second and third moves, and even those aren't too plentiful. Hell, the Red Cross and the Red Hog learn the exact same moves. There are also no new moves after level 8, which makes going further than that not interesting. You also can't use items, you can't escape, and you can't switch planimals during combat. Obviously, this means a lack of tactics and strategy, but it also changes the way that the player perceives the mechanics. Imagine you're playing some other turn-based RPG and you find yourself in a situation where your party member will die if he takes another hit. But you could defeat the enemy if you used a powerful but inaccurate attack. If you used an item, switched the party member or just ran away, you would be able to avoid taking that risk. So if it backfires, the fault is all yours. In Monster Harvest, you don't have that choice. If the game decides your next attack is going to miss, then tough luck, asshole, rip in pieces. This is probably to make permadeath mean something, but it's dumb how you can do nothing when you end up in an unfavorable situation by pure chance. The Harvest part is better, but also has its share of issues, mostly surrounding its lack of depth. Crops have no varying quality, and despite being called soil level, it has no influence on anything besides the starting level of planimals. It won't make your crops grow faster or sell for more, which is a missed opportunity. The fusion system is interesting, but ultimately not very efficient. And no, hybrid crops can't be turned into planimals. And no, you can't have planimals help you with the farming. When you first reach the wet season, you quickly notice a lot of the game's shortcomings, such as how a lot of items have different designs, but are functionally the exact same. The dry season's radish and glowfruit take 4 days to grow and sell for $60 each, while the mutato and brainkin take 6 days and sell for $100. The wet season's creamberry, redberry and torch pepper take 4 days to grow and sell for $60 each, while the crab apple takes 6 days and sells for $100. Refined items also have no variety, since the machines only apply a flat multiplier to the value of each basic item. You don't have some that are refined really fast but don't sell for much more, or some that take a lot longer to refine but also sell for a lot more money. It doesn't matter what crops you're growing, since none of them have any significant advantages or disadvantages. To be fair, the dark season is more unique, with its distinctively different visuals and crops that take longer to grow and sell for considerably more. Hell, even the planimals have unique moves. But wet season feels like an extension of dry season, a wet fart you could say. But this is just the crops. There's also the whole everything else part, like how every fish sells for 35, or how all products dropped by livestock sell for 50, making them carbon copies of each other. Similarly, every combat planimal sells for 200 regardless of its species or level. Fodder also just magically appears on the barn, so there's no need to worry about harvesting enough of it. There's no relationship level either, and like with crops, there are no quality levels for livestock products. Like I said, the soil level does nothing except change the starting level of planimals, so despite the selling point being a mix of farming and monster taming, there's little synergy between the two. It would be cool if, for example, there was a way to get stronger seeds. Like if there was a machine that took grown crops and turned them into a +1 seed that would result in a +1 crop that sells for more money, or a +1 Planemo that is stronger, and then you would get a +2 seed, then +3, +4, etc. The game also lacks meaningful interactions with the rest of the world. There's no marriage, and the villagers don't have any unique events to see. All you get is a discount on their shops. In the same way, festivals don't have anything to do in them besides talking to the villagers or buying items from a list that's mostly filled with the same cosmetics all the time. They're glorified shops, basically. Even the New Year's Eve is a big pile of nothing. Villagers don't make any comment or show any excitement, and when you get to it at night, it's just like every other festival. There are no fireworks or anything interesting, just a shop and villagers with a generic line about how cool this festival totally is. There also isn't any secret stuff to discover besides 2 areas that unlocks a fishing rod and a furniture shop. By the start of the wet season, I was already max level and the joy of discovering new recipes was lost. And I have to say, you have a pretty lackluster selection of things to craft. There are so many pieces of furniture that could easily be unlocked as a crafting recipe, but as it is, there aren't enough levels to last even half the game. Combined with a buggy launch and a lack of polish, you can see why the reception hasn't been very good. The game is filled with little things that are either bugs, oversights, or just questionable design decisions. Some have already been fixed, and the updates also rebalanced a few aspects like the amount of stamina used by the watering can. But there's still a lot of things that the developers should look into. Some are superficial, like the HP and XP overflow, or how healing moves are represented by negative damage, or how a handful of sound effects are way too loud compared to everything else. Then there's the less superficial ones, like how my first jam machine just friggin' imploded and never came back. Unlike the mounts, which apparently will disappear if you leave them near the entrance to the dungeon, and then the stable will say that you have no mounts, but then if you go to sleep, the mount is there again like nothing happened. Doing literally anything also kicks you out of your mount, which is annoying. I also noticed some weirdness with battle text. It turns out that you can skip messages by clicking them, which speeds up combat a bit. But with a controller you can just hold a button and it'll go by super fast. In fact, it screws up the absorb move and causes it to trigger twice. On the other hand, fishing is an absolute breeze with a mouse and is quite abusable, to put it lightly. Some tool upgrades are also of questionable value, in particular the sword and the watering can. The Mystic Sword deals a pitiful amount of damage that is basically useless, because even the basic attacks will be doing several times as much damage. You'd think it would help you beat low-level scrubs faster since they reward close to no XP, but no, it just deals a tiny percentage of their max HP in damage. And the watering can, even at its Mystic upgrade, still only covers 1 tile and still has to be refilled after 25 uses or so, which is silly when you consider how big the farm is once you unlock the extra section. Yes, you can use pipes, but those make an ugly mess out of your farm and require being connected to water and to lay out your crops in a specific manner. Also, a few quality of life suggestions that would be appreciated. One would be a map, or even a minimap for Planemo Point, which would help orient new players. It would also be nice if crafting could automatically detect and use the items you have stored in chests, so that you wouldn't need to take them out manually. There should also be a stat screen for both the player and the Planemos. There's also no way to sell items right away, which, okay, sure, you're supposed to get paid at the end of a day. But if that's the case, why can you sell Planemos instantly? A better way of seeing what is behind plants and other stuff would also be nice. Maybe making crops transparent when the player is around them? I don't know. Finally, there has been some controversy involving the game's graphics. If you're familiar with Stardew Valley, then comparisons are inevitable. They're both farming games and both use a very similar art style, with pixelated sprites and cartoony colors. Though Monster Harvest does use an angled 3D look to the world, which can sometimes be annoying since it makes it hard to see behind certain crops. But overall, I like how the game looks, especially the dark season with its darker ground and colorful grass and decorations getting a really nice contrast. The crops and the planimals are also unique compared to the ones in the dry and wet seasons, which makes dark season a welcome change of pace. The only thing I'm less fond of are the character sprites, which all look chunky and out of place compared to the world. They also aren't consistent with the characters' portraits. Now, the controversy came about when people on the Steam forums brought up some tiles used in Monster Harvest that look a whole lot like some from Stardew Valley, as well as the crystals being very similar to the ones found on a tutorial. Well, the crystals are similar, but first of all they're based on the instructions from a free public tutorial, and secondly, they very clearly are not the same asset. Meanwhile, the tiles were removed at some point in development, and as you can see, these screenshots don't have the tilted angle and the interface is slightly different. Supposedly, the offending artist was kicked from the team. As for the other two, that's where things get messy. One asset in question is the interface, which uses a slightly tweaked version of a UI design from OpenGameArt. The artist has made multiple iterations of it, and one of them requires attribution, while the rest are public domain and thus don't require attribution. From what I can tell, only the public domain ones are used, so while giving credit would be a nice gesture, the Merge Games representative is correct when he says that it was used properly. So it's a bit weird to claim that this was an oversight. Then there's this mount. People say it's stolen from a Chocobo mod for Stardew Valley, but the sprites actually come from Final Fantasy VI, which is even worse. While the upper body is again similar, it's not exactly the same, but the lower body matches pretty closely and the highlights on the feet are exact matches. I'm not a lawyer, but for legal reasons you might want to change this. In conclusion, Monster Harvest's core gameplay is okay, but frankly it also needed more time in the oven. Monster Harvest feels like a base for something that could be much better with some content updates, or maybe the game could have been launched in early access for a while. There have been some small updates, but the amount of work this game needs can't be done in just weeks. The team keeps reassuring people that the launch is just the beginning, and if the post-launch support is good, then I think Monster Harvest has the potential to be great. I'd like to think that the developers aren't just a bunch of cynical bastards, but rather a small, inexperienced team finally making their dream game. But I can't know what they are thinking, and in its current state I can't really recommend it. If you're intrigued by it, the good news is that there's a demo, so you can try the game for yourself. The game is fun, but its shortcomings become quite apparent after a few hours. It's hard to recommend it over, say, Stardew Valley or Story of Seasons / Harvest Moon / Wrong Harvest Moon. These don't have monster taming, but Monster Harvest doesn't do it particularly well anyway, and these other games instead have a deep farming and life simulation with a truckload of content and a town full of people with their own stories to tell. Still, Monster Harvest's mix of elements is unique, so in the interest of giving the developers the benefit of the doubt, I hope that a year from now it will be in a much better position.